What's up guys, Ryan here from Mud Gunner, and today we are talking about your builds. This is going to be a video about viewer submission builds. I did a video last Friday talking about my favorite gun and my first gun, or my favorite build and my first build. And I said rate my builds, and then next Friday I'll rate yours, and I said the theme. And the theme for today's video is your favorite build or your first build. And we got some really good submissions in, so yeah, this is going to be a little bit longer of a video, but just sit back and enjoy. These are viewer submission pictures, so they're not my pictures. And if you guys want to participate in next week's video, I'm going to show you guys at the end of the video how to get in it and what the theme is going to be, because every week I want to do a different theme. So yeah, before we get into it real fast, if you're looking to support the channel, please go check out atroxco.com. I have this really cool patch wrap patch on there. It's a 4-inch Velcro PVC patch, and I'm trying to fund a new vehicle this year because my car is on its last legs. I need an off-road vehicle. And yeah, if you buy this patch, I am going to give you a patch wrap sticker and a Brass Goblin sticker for free. Ends up being like 15 bucks after shipping, and I'm getting the orders out within a couple days. If you order on Friday, it's going to get shipped out like Monday or Tuesday, but they are for sure going to get shipped out within a couple of days of you ordering. They're all readily available on hand. So please consider supporting me by checking my website out. Also got some shirts and other stuff on there. If you buy a shirt, I will give you a Mud Gunner patch. So that's going through June. While you guys are watching the video, comment down below with builds that you really liked, or maybe your suggestions for that person. With this, I was debating how I wanted to do like a rate your build kind of video, but I didn't want to classify it by like number ratings or anything like that. I more or less just want to show off your guns and maybe give some feedback if there's things that I like or might change differently. So I'm not trying to roast your guys' builds. Like, these are all really nice guns, and I appreciate you guys reaching out and wanting to participate in this. So yeah, I'm not roasting anyone's guns. This is just showing off builds to give you guys inspiration to maybe help with your own builds. So yeah, just comment down below. And also, this is my very first episode for this theme. So it's my first time editing this type of video. It took a lot of work to kind of cut and paste the pictures how I wanted to talk about them to you guys. So if there's anything that you'd like me to do differently, comment down below. This is my first try. So hopefully every week we do this, I can get a little bit better, and we'll see some really cool builds in this. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into these viewer builds. All right, guys, so again, we are going in the order that I received your emails. So William, you are the very first person in hopefully the series of build videos that we're going to do. And I'm actually really happy with the first gun we got. So we have an FN Scar 17 with a factory 13-inch barrel. So we bought a 16-inch barrel, I assume, and then SBR'd it and bought FN's factory 13-inch barrel, which is the way I would want to do it. And yeah, I want a Scar 17 and a 13-inch barrel. I think it'd be sick with an L-can, but yeah, this build is super sick as well. So let's go through it. We got a, again, 13-inch factory barrel. It's got the Mototech 3-selector regulator, so that's going to be really good for running suppressed. You can adjust it and tune it to run whatever suppressor you're doing. It's got a GG&G charging handle, so I believe those are the more angled down charging handles. It's got a Parker Mountain Machine bad lever and flared magwell. So the bad lever is kind of like the mag pull one that makes it easier to lock the bolt back and release it with your right index finger. We got Tango Down rail covers. We got a Tango Down vertical grip. I use the vertical grips a lot, especially the quick detach ones. We have the GG&G extended pick rails, and honestly, for a barrel length like that, it's pretty nice to have just a little bit of extra rail space in front. The FN rail from the factory is a little short for my liking, so running an extended rail is pretty nice. It's got a T-Rex arm sling, which I like. And then optics wise, we are running a Nightforce NX8 1:8, and then it is capped with the FC DMX reticle, which is the same as the Attacker. So I'm not too familiar with Nightforce optics, but the Attacker is one of their really high-end scopes, and this one has the same reticle as it, but again, it's the NX8, and then it's on an American Defense mount, and it's got a tan Acro P2 mounted on top, so an aim-point Acro on top. Light-wise, it's got a Surefire M640 dual fuel turbo, and then it's I think it's a turbo, DFT. It's got a Unity Tactical USB-C tail cap and a Mod Light USB-C mod button. So that light setup is pretty sick. I haven't seen that setup in person before with that tail cap, but it looks really clean. And then he didn't mention the wrap, but the light, the optic, and the cheek riser on the stock all have a camo wrap. And then it's also got a Surefire RC2 on there. I assume the RC2 Mini 762 would be my guess. I don't think it's the full-length one. But it's also got a Manta Defense suppressor cover on there, which is going to help with heat mirage when shooting suppressed. But yeah, that's a super sick build, William. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, I dig it. So for me, I can't necessarily do the two-tone colors on my builds. I don't know, I get really OCD and I want either all black or all the 50 shades of FDE, but that, I always think it looks really sick when other people do it. So thank you for sharing. That's a super sick build. I didn't see in your notes if you put the Scar trigger in there, like the Geisley Super Scar, but honestly, I think you'd love the Geisley Super Scar. I also noticed you are running a BCM grip, so Parker Mountain Machine probably did that grip too, because if you didn't know, the FN Scars, they take their own pistol grip, even though it looks like an A2. So, very sick build. I also see a Magpul QD RSA on there, which is for the front sling mount. And yeah, that's an amazing build, and I'm really happy that's the first build that we're talking about. So next up we have Mike. He actually sent in 2 builds, and since we have enough time in this video, I'm going to talk through both of the builds. They actually look very similar. So here's the first one. It's his first build. It started out as a bone stock Colt 6721 from back in 2015. I'm not familiar with that part number off the top of my head. It's got a Magpul OD Green Cerakote on there, which looks pretty sick. It's the Magpul STR stock, the MOE Plus grip, which means it's rubberized. We got the Gen 3 OD Green sights, which look really cool on there. And then it's got a BCM grip wrapped in OD Green goon tape. And then as far as optics goes, it's a Vortex Viper 1st Gen 1-4 wrapped in OD Green goon tape as well. And then it's capped with a 100 Concept scope cap, pro and rear scope cap, which I'm not too familiar with those, but looking at it, it looks pretty nice on the build. And then it's got an offset 45-degree Vortex Crossfire red dot, and then it also has a 100 Concepts ARD, which I'm not familiar with the ARD. It's kind of hard to tell from this picture exactly, but I assume it's a cover. It's kind of hard to tell from the picture. And then it's running a Surefire 640 dual fuel, Ranger wrapped in OD Green with a 100 Concepts light cap. So I'm not familiar with 100 Concepts, but I assume it's just all the covers and everything. And I've been told to do some light caps on mine. And the reason why you would do like a flashlight cover is in case you accidentally pressed the button, which when the pressure pad's on top, it's not as big of a deal. But if you're running your pressure pad on the side and it hits your gear, hits something, it could basically ND your light, which you don't want to show your position if you are in a situation like that. But yeah, very cool build so far. It's got a cloud defensive pressure pad holder. It's also got a dead air chemo flash hider, and then we got a Magpul P-Mag wrapped in the OD Green goon tape. And then he even said a zero. He got a 50 to 200 yard zero using 62 grain 5.56, which I assume is the M855. So very cool build. He's on the East Coast, which is why it's a lot of green. But even here in Arizona, an OD Green gun like that would look sick. And then I don't think you mentioned your charging handle, but it looks like you got a Radiant Raptor charging handle on there. I missed the rail. So it's got an Aero Atlas 15-inch rail in OD Green. So it ties it all together extremely well. And if you're ever looking to put a suppressor on there, the Flat Dark Earth Dead Air Sandman S mill would look sick on that build. So thank you for sharing. And then we'll talk about his other build too. So like I said, he did send 2 builds. So the second build looks very similar in all the color schemes, and I really like how he matched them together. This one is his favorite build. It's a Spikes Tactical 10-inch 300 Blackout SBR, and then it's also got the OD Green Cerakote, Magpul STR stock, the MOE Plus grip, the same sights. This one's got the Aero Atlas 10.3-inch rail, same BCM grip. And then optics-wise, he's running an EOTech 300 Blackout Reticle XPS 2-2, so it's got 2 dots in there. And being in the 300 Blackout specific model, it's set up for 300 Blackout bullet drop, just so you know. And then it's got a G33 magnifier behind it. They're both wrapped as well in the OD Green, or the Ranger Green. It's got a Streamlight ProTac 2 on there, which is the flashlight. The Streamlight ProTacs are extremely nice lights. And then it looks like the pressure pad is ran on the right side. I assume you're right-handed, so for me, it's kind of interesting where you have the light pressure pad, but I could see how it would work for you. And then it's got a Gemtech direct thread suppressor with a Coltac suppressor cover, and then a Superlative Arms adjustable gas block. I've heard good things about those. I have an upper that has one of their gas blocks on there. And then Magpul 300 Blackout specific mags, and then he's got a 50 to 200 yard zero using 220 grain 300 Blackout. So again, very cool builds, very like similar looking. I mean, they're basically the same gun, but for different purposes. And I love the way you set them up. So thank you for sharing, Mike. Next up, we have Roberto, and this is his very first build from scratch, and it's a Mark 18 clone. So very sweet just by looking at it. It's got an Otter Creek Labs Polonium K556 suppressor. I've heard a lot of good things about those. I haven't ran one personally, but I have an Otter Creek OCM5 can. It's a Revival Defense QD 3-prong flash hider, a Daniel Defense Mark 18 upper. I assume this was their stripped upper because normally they're stamped Mark 18. But you can normally tell they're the stripped uppers when they say Daniel Defense in the top left corner. And then I assume it didn't come with a bolt carrier group or charging handle. He's running a Samson foregrip. He's got an EOTech EXPS 3-0 on, I think, a Unity or a Reptilia riser. I can't tell from the picture, but that one's going to be the night vision compatible EOTech. And then Lancer transparent FDE mag, which is sick. And he's running a Sons of Liberty Gunworks collaboration with FCD Ambi lower receiver. I'm not familiar with FCD off the top of my head. And then a Timney 3-pound single stage trigger, which is a very light trigger made here in Arizona. Geisley lower parts kit, bootleg adjustable bolt carrier group, which would make sense if it was the stripped upper. Geisley supercharging handle, which is very nice. A B5 grip, a JP buffer tube, and then a Geisley Super Duty H3 buffer system, and a B5 stock. So a very sick build. The only thing I see off the top of my head that I think you should add would be maybe a light and a sling. If you're running iron sights on there, they're going to sit too low with that riser unless you buy some extremely tall sights. So I get that. I have a Mark 18 setup kind of similar. But yeah, honestly, if you tie it together with like a cloud defense light or a mod light, I think it'd be pretty sick with the pressure pad. And then sling wise, I like the B5 padded slings. I think it would look very sick with your build. But thank you for sharing, Roberto. Next up, we are looking at another Scar 17 by what looks like an Arizona local, Edward. He also has a YouTube channel called AZ Cactus Tack, so go check him out. And it's a black FN Scar 17. It's got a Geisley Super Scar trigger, which is the only way to go for the Scar, in my opinion. For the rail system, it's got a Rego Systems SMR 13 4N for M-Lock. I'm not familiar with that exact rail for the FN Scars, but it looks nice. To me, it looks similar to the KDG rail. That's what I have on my Scar 17. But yeah, that one looks really good on there. He's running a Steiner T536, so it's a 5 to 36 power optic. It's kind of like Steiner's version of an ACOG from what I know. And then he's got a Parker Mountain Machine bad lever. He's got the BCM Mod 3 grip, the safety selector, the extended magazine release, the magwell, and then the rail elimination panels on the side, so basically took away the factory quad rail that was on there, and then the QD sling mount, which is on the front, it looks like from the picture. So that's all from Parker Mountain Machine, which does really good Scar accessories for that. And then he's got a Kinetic Development Group quick detach rear sling mount, and yeah, it's kind of hard for me to tell from the picture, but that's what he said in the description. It's got the Mototech Scarburator, which is your adjustable gas system. Again, I've heard a lot of great things about it. I haven't ran one on mine yet. And then he is running a Huxworks Flow 762 suppressor on their QD muzzle brake. And I'm actually looking to maybe replace my suppressor. I have a Silencer Co. Omega 300 on mine with a Flow 762 and FDE because I think it's sick. And then I don't think you talked about it, but it looks like you got an Atlas bipod on there. And then he's talking about still needing to do a flashlight, which I agree. And then he's talking about a sling, custom Savvy sniper sling, which is actually being built. So that's very cool. I'm not too familiar with those slings, but I've heard of them. Yeah, very cool build. I like the all black Scars. But yeah, thank you for sharing, Edward. And remember, go check out his YouTube channel, AZ Cactus Tack. So next up we have DJ with his favorite rifle build, and this looks sick just looking at it. It's an LMT Mars lower, and that is their ambi lower. It's kind of similar to the Knights Armament. It's got a Geisley lower parts kit and an SSAE trigger and buffer system. And then he's got an LMT Defender upper, so I assume he bought a stripped upper and lower set. He's got a Roscoe 12.5 inch K9 barrel on there, an FCD 11.5 inch handguard. Not familiar with FCD, the brand, but I'm sure I've seen them around. A Yankee Hill Turbo T2, and that's his very first suppressor. I'm actually getting a Turbo T here soon, the first T, like just a Turbo K, basically. He's got a Steiner OTALC laser. I'm not familiar with that one. I can't see closely on it. I have a Steiner i2. I can't tell. It looks very similar to that, but I can't get a close-up on this picture. But Steiner makes good lasers. It's got an Arisaka 600 light body with a Surefire KM2C head. So can't see it from this picture either. He only sent one picture, but it looks very sick. And then he's got an Aimpoint Pro with a Daniel Defense mount on there, and then a Vortex 3X magnifier temporarily. So I assume he's going to upgrade the magnifier. But it looks super sick. And then he didn't mention it, but I'm seeing a Magpul sling, a B5 SOTMOD stock, a Magpul K2 Plus grip, I assume, and then the BCM vertical grip. And he's running it with a Surefire dual pressure pad from the looks of it. But very sick build. Thank you for sharing, DJ. And yeah, I dig that setup a lot. Next one is one of my favorites as well. This is from, I'm sorry if I butcher your name. It's either Yves or Yves. Sorry if I butcher your name. But he's got a Q Honeybadger with a Gemtech Abyss suppressor. So I'm not familiar with that suppressor. And then he's got a Trigicon MRO on a Unity mount. He's got a Surefire 600 dual fuel. And then that's all he said in the description. He's got a light cap on there. I don't know the brand. I don't run any light caps on my guns yet, but I'd like to get some at some point. I'm not familiar with that that flat dark earth, what I assume is the sling cover or the sling wrap. I'm not familiar with that brand. I don't run those either, but I'd like to get some at some point. This is one of the later Honeybadgers that came with a Geisley trigger. So they've ran 3 different triggers in them. They started out with the AR Gold, which is what I have. Then they went to the Geisleys. I don't know exactly what model, but then now they do their own trigger called literally the best trigger ever made, which is from Q. But it's kind of like an AR Gold copy from the looks of it. And then they run Radiant safety selectors and charging handles. The Q Honeybadger is extremely quiet. It's like one of my favorite 300 Blackouts, and I've done a lot of videos on mine. I don't know which wrap is on his. And then he also posted a SIG P365 Legion. It's basically a X macro comp Legion. Like, it's a crazy Legion, but they look sick. I haven't shot that one yet, but very cool build, and thank you for sharing. And then he also has a what looks like a BCM grip that was cut, but super sick. And again, I'm not familiar with that Gemtech Abyss suppressor. Gemtech makes good stuff, but I just haven't heard of that can specifically. But yeah, thank you for sharing. I love the color scheme on that. And then he's also running a Magpul grip, which is what came from the factory, and then the Magpul magazine with the actual Magpul pull on the bottom, which is what they're for. They're for pulling out of your mag carrier or plate carrier. But thank you for sharing, Yves or Yves. Again, sorry if I butcher your name. Next up is another sick gun. This is a Daniel Defense M4A1R3. This is actually one I'd like to get at some point. This is on their new generation of lowers, so it's their ambi lowers. They're stamped DD4 carbine. I think it still classifies as an M4A1, but the M4A1s normally have a 14.5-inch barrel, but he says this one's a 16-inch. So it's got their birdcage flash hider on there. It's got a Surefire M640 dual fuel in tan. He's also running the Surefire pressure pad, which is the pick rail mounted one that has the momentary button and the constant on. And then he's got Magpul MBUS Pro front sight and rear, and you'll notice the rear is on the front of the rail. The reason why you would do that so you can get your magnifier a little bit further back. The only other thing that I would notice with that is I don't think you can use those iron sights with the EOTech setup the way it is because it's on a riser. But if you quick detach the rear off, I think you could use it with the magnifier still in there. I'm not sure. I haven't played with that setup specifically. But yeah, Magpul MBUS Pro flip-up sights, which are one of my favorites. Magpul hand stop, which is the M-lock on the bottom. And then a MS4 QD sling in the Coyote Tan, which I like that sling. I've run on a lot of guns. And then he's got the rail scales honeycombs on the sides, it looks like. And then he's running the Unity Tactical riser for the EOTech setup. So he's got an EOTech. Does he say in the description? Oh, it's the EOTech green. So it's I think it's a EXPS 2-0G is like the green reticle one, and that's on the Unity riser. And then he's got a G33 magnifier on a Unity flip riser too. So when that magnifier is down, it's actually just straight down below the EOTech. So it keeps it all in line where the factory EOTech magnifier throws it to the right. So very cool setup. I haven't ran that Unity setup just yet, but I'd like to try one at some point. And he's got a Radian 45 degree safety selector on there, or I guess he didn't say 45 degree, but I like running them as 45 degree. You can do either 45 or 90, but yeah, he's running a Radian safety selector, which is one of my favorites. He's got a Geisley Super Semi-Automatic trigger, which is a 4.5 pound trigger, and then a Geisley charging handle. And he's running a B5 stock. I think that's their, it's not their SOP mod, but it's the one that doesn't hold the battery, so a little bit slimmer, which is nice. And then a irregular defense cheek riser, which is pretty nice. I haven't used those personally, but it looks good on that build. So yeah, thank you for sharing, Pedro. I love it. And then it's got the new Magpul, like Gen 3 Coyote mags, which I think the military are using. But yeah, besides that, super sick build. I love the color scheme on it. And I want to get one of those R3 rifles at some point because that's their new M-Lock, like M4A1 rails. All right, next one is his first and favorite AR that he's built. This is from Benjamin, and looks pretty sick just looking at it. So it's a Knights Armament 11.5 CQB upper with the E3.2 bolt carrier, or at bolt, he's saying Microbest chrome bolt, Centurion chrome bolt carrier with sand cuts is on the way. I'm not familiar with that Microbest chrome bolt. I know the E3.2 bolt on like Knights stuff, so what I'm assuming is, I don't know if that's a factory Knights Armament bolt carrier group, but yeah, he's saying Centurion chrome bolt carrier with sand cuts is on the way, but he's got an Aimpoint T2 on a Unity riser, and then he's running a Geisley super charging handle, a Geisley Super 42 braided spring, rail scale, XOS H scales with rail scales grip, so that's like all the handguard covers there. And then he's got a Dead Air Wolfman on there, which, that's interesting. I didn't know you can run the Wolfman on a 5.56. He didn't say if this is 5.56 or not, but I assume it's a 5.56. So the Dead Air Wolfman's a 9mm suppressor, and then he says he has a Surefire RC2 in jail right now, so he's waiting on the tax stamp for that. And he's running a Radian ADAC SBR lower. So those Radian lowers, I've heard good things about them, but I haven't used one personally, but super sweet lower. And then he's got a Geisley SDE trigger, a Radian safety selector, and then a B5 grip and SOP mod stock. I can't tell exactly what sling you're using. You didn't mention it. If I could make a recommendation, I would probably choose something that has more like quick adjustment on the front, because looking at it, it looks like it's fixed the way it is. But again, I'm not familiar with that sling setup, but I mean, that's a pretty nice build. Also, you didn't mention, but it looks like you got your Knights Armament sights on there. But yeah, my recommendation would be if you got a sling with a adjustable like tab on there. So it's like basically quick adjustment to either tighten it or loosen it. That helps if you're running a plate carrier or not. And then you didn't mention anything about a light, but having a light on there would look pretty sick. And I think it's important to have a light on your gun, but dude, sick build. I haven't played too much with those Unity risers on aim points. I'm not familiar if you're running night vision or not, but yeah, that'd be a pretty sick night vision setup with like some IR light laser combo. But yeah, besides that, super sick build, and I dig the color scheme. So thank you for sharing, Benjamin. And yeah, for your first AR, that's pretty sick. So if you have any questions on lights, I did my favorite rifle light video like a few months ago where I showed like 5 of my favorite lights, but for that one, if you're trying to keep it lightweight and like slimline, I mean, either a mod light or like the Surefire, the new Surefire Turbo would look pretty sick on there. All right, next up we have Devon with his very first AR, and he says it took him about 3 months to collect all the parts and build it, and he got to shoot it for the first time last weekend, and now he's hooked. So thank you for sharing, Devon. Let's get into it. It's a Mark 18 build. It's a Arrow M4A1 stripped lower, an Arrow lower parts kit, Geisley G2S trigger with a B5 trigger guard. He's got a Geisley Super 42 spring with the H2 buffer, which is basically the same one I run on my Mark 18 setup. He's got a B5 grip and trigger guard. I don't know if I mentioned the trigger guard already, but yeah, B5 grip and trigger guard. He's running the SBA3 pistol brace from SB Tactical. He's got a stripped Daniel Defense upper with a BCM bolt carrier group and a Radian charging handle, and then a Surefire 4-prong with the Surefire Warden on there. Surefire Scout Light Pro, the 640U, and then he's got it with their pressure pad, Knights Armament flip-up sights, and then he's got an EOTech EXPS 3.0, and then replica G33 magnifier. Okay, so he says it looks It does look real from the picture, minus the color on the magnifier itself, but he's waiting for the real one to come in. Magpul, hand stop, and ladder grips. But yeah, super sick build, Devon. Thank you for sharing. And I mean, based off the picture, the only thing I think you're missing is a sling, but it looks like you have a band for maybe holding a sling. I've talked about this before, but I like the Blue Force Gear slings. I also run a lot of Viking Tactics slings, and I'm definitely a fan of the padded slings. And then I don't know if you mentioned a suppressor or not yet, but Surefire RC2 suppressor would be really nice on there. Yeah, sick build, and thank you for sharing. I love the two-tone. Most of my stuff are all like FDE builds, so yeah, I definitely dig the color scheme, and that's one of my favorite looking Mark 18 setups, so thank you for sharing. All right, next up we have Ryland with this sick clone build. So it says, this is the clone of the rifle I used while in service. I was a maintainer on F-16s, so I didn't use the rifle much, but as of now, this is my favorite. It's not quite done yet, and it isn't completely clone correct for all those detail nerds. It's close enough for me, and it looks almost identical. Still need the PEC, but yeah, I agree with you. That thing looks sick, and honestly, you're never going to be clone correct because, I mean, it's too hard, and, you know, we don't get the fancy lowers, so that still looks sick from the picture you sent me. So let's see the build specs. M4A1 marked lower, unbranded AR stripped upper, B King 16-inch government barrel with front sight block, needs to be a 14.5. I'm not familiar with B Kings. Knight's Armament rail. This is a surplus rail, which I like those rails. I run a bunch of them. The Knight's broomstick vertical grip, Knight's rail covers, Insight dual pressure pad, and an Insight M3X SU233 light. So I'm not familiar with that light, but I've seen them before, and you see them in a lot of clone pictures, but it looks sick on there, especially in tan. He's got an A2 flash hider, which I can't see exactly from this picture, but yeah. He's got an A2 flash hider, a Mawtech rear sight, which is just a surplus sight. SIG Romeo 7, can't justify buying the Comp M4S yet. I agree with you, those Comp M4s are pretty expensive, but sometimes you can find them used for like $500-ish. But that Romeo 7 like really does look the part. It almost looks better than a Comp M4. CQD sling mounts on the front and rear, Tango down pistol grip, and a B5 stock. So yeah, that thing is a super sick build. I mean, that's kind of like an iconic just M4 build, and I think everyone should have a build like this. It looks so cool, and I've actually been working on a couple of these myself. And then special note, the UID tag on the lower is my AFSC, my aircraft's tail number, and the series/model my F-16 was. So that's very cool. Yeah, thank you for watching my videos. And he also mentioned he does have a YouTube channel here. He says he hasn't posted much yet, but still go check out his channel if you guys don't mind. It's called Code 1 Arms. So yeah, thank you again for sharing, and thank you for your service. That is such a super sick rifle build, and hopefully you can get an Aimpoint Comp M4 one of these days. If one comes to our store, I'll hit you up if I can get it to you at a good deal, because yeah, sometimes they're pricey, but sometimes you can find them for a pretty good deal. So I'll keep you in mind if we get another one through our store. So next up we have a build from Nick, who is also in the gun industry, and this is his left-handed build. He says it took him from September of last year through April of this year to get this thing built. So let's get into it. So it's a BCM Mark II BFH complete upper. As far as I know about the Mark IIs, they have like the reinforced like upper receiver. Besides that, I don't know too much about them, but it's got a BCM bolt carrier group and their 13-inch MCMR rail, so it's their M-LOK rail. It's got what I assume is their 14.5-inch upper, mid-length gas system. He's got the Surefire closed-tine war comp on there, which is a pin and weld, because if it's 14.5, you got to keep it 16 overall to be classified as a rifle. He's got the Surefire Scout Light 640 Turbo with the DS00 tail cap, and then reverse-mounted Unity hot button. Took me a sec to see that hot button, but that's kind of like blended in there on the 45-degree angle. He's got contour cut Magpul rail covers, the chopped BCM vertical grip. He's running Magpul MBUS Pro flip-up sights, a reverse-mounted Unity riser, which is for that EOTech, and then it's an EOTech EXPS 2.0 with a green dot, bubble level in line with the rail. I can't tell which bubble level that is. Radian Raptor charging handle, shield arms folding lower. So that you know, like the Law Tactical folders, this lower has a built-in folder, so it's all one unit, which I've seen those lowers a couple times before. They look pretty sick. He's got a Geisley lower parts kit, a Troy Ambi mag release, which is reasonable for being left-handed. He's got a Geisley, of course, my rattlesnake's rattling, sorry, one sec. I moved the wrong way, and yes, I do have rattlesnakes. He's got a Geisley SSAE trigger, a B5 grip, an H2 buffer, and then a Springco white spring, soon to be a red spring. I've heard really good things about the Springco springs, but I'm not familiar with all of them. But basically, they're a spring that you can buy different color ones, and they're set up for different barrel lengths or weights or suppressor, unsuppressed. Go check them out because I'm not too familiar with them, but I've heard a lot of good things. He's running an Aero Precision OD Green buffer tube, a Magpul CTR stock with a chopped Magpul half-inch cheek riser, and he's planning to run it suppressed with the Surefire Hub B&T Inconel SBRS, either in 5.56 or 7.62, more so considering can length over sound. So yeah, B&T does a variety of suppressors. I'm not familiar with that one off the top of my head, but it sounds like it'll mount straight to the Surefire muzzle device that he has on there. But super sick build. Thank you for sharing. You didn't mention your sling, I don't believe. Let me get a closer look at that sling. And then, yeah, it looks like he's running a T-Rex arm sling. But then hopefully that gives you some inspiration if you're left-handed. I mean, basically everything's the same minus the ambi mag release and then the way he has the light set up. But yeah, I think we can all agree that's a pretty nice build there. And then finally, we have kind of a last-minute submission, but it still counts. But you gave me no information. This is from Andrew. You gave me no details, so I'm just going to go off what I see here in the pictures. But this is probably the most money in one picture. So this is a bunch of FNs. We have an FN Scar 16, which looks like it has the 10-inch barrel. And then it looks like he's rocking a Surefire RC2 suppressor on there. He's got a maul. He's got a mod light. I think that's an 8-point T2. He's on a Unity riser with what I see is a Nice Armament battery cap to basically store a second battery in there. He's running a Magpul grip on there. And besides that, I can't really see closely, so I can't tell if he's running a trigger or anything. But, I mean, that's a super badass Scar 16. I'm not familiar with that sling, but it's like an Arid camo sling. Right above it, he's got a Scar 17. It looks like a 13-inch barrel. And it kind of looks like a Dead Air Sandman suppressor, but that mount looks weird. So comment down below what can that is if you're watching this, Andrew. But super sick build on that. I think it's a 13-inch barrel. The rail, I can't see closely on the rail. So it looks like the Scar 16 has an extended rail as well, like a short one. And then same with that Scar 17. I'm running a KDG rail, but that doesn't necessarily look like a KDG rail. They all look similar after a 1 point. He's running a rail deletion kit on both of those as well. And then looks like a Vortex Razor HD on there. I can't tell if it's a Gen 2. It looks like a Gen 2 1-6, but I could be wrong. Mount-wise, I think that's a Reptilia mount. And then he's running a Flat Dark Earth Aimpoint Acro P2 on there. And then up top, we have the saw, so the FN 249 saw. That one, I see it says semi-auto, so you can actually buy a semi-auto saw. I think that's the Paratrooper model. That's not the stock it would have come with, so I think you swap the stock out. And then you're running what looks like a Surefire RC2 Mini on there. I'm not familiar with that bipod. He's got a Magpul RVG grip, a Steiner laser, an EOTech EXPS 2.0 or 3.0, depending on if it's night vision compatible, and then another sling on that one. So super sick builds. If I had to say anything, it just looks like your Scar 17 needs maybe a light and a sling setup. I don't know if you want to run that with night vision, but maybe you could buy another maul. The B.E. Myers maul is super sick. I want to get one at some point, but they're a little pricey, and I don't see them used very often. But thank you for sharing, Andrew. Like I said, you didn't give me any info, and you kind of, that's 3 builds, but I'll let it slide because there's 3 super sick builds. Hope you guys enjoyed those builds. They were pretty sick, am I right? Thank you guys for participating, and if you're looking to do next week's video or get into next week's video, here's the thing. So I have some rules for next week's video just to make it a little bit easier to edit and to make it kind of fair so that I'm not like talking too much about one person's guns. I would like it to be just one gun. I know we want to show off multiple guns, and I was perfectly okay with this week. It was honestly a really good amount, but if you guys can, just because I'll probably get more submissions every week, just one gun per submission. You could do 2 pictures because I know like maybe front and back or left side and right side. But yeah, just one gun, please. You could do ideally 2 pictures. We don't necessarily need more than 2. It gets hard to kind of go through all of them if I get like 10 plus submissions. And then on top of that, if you guys can do a horizontal picture with your iPhone, if you have an iPhone or maybe Android, 16 by 9 is the correct format for YouTube. So when I record a video, I do it in 16 by 9. When I crop pictures for thumbnails, it's all 16 by 9. So if you can crop the picture yourself, it makes it easier because I'm just kind of downloading them from my email. And some of the pictures were vertical, some of them were square, but if you guys could take a good horizontal 16 by 9 picture, it's gonna look better in the video, and ideally use like a good camera because some of them were a little bit blurrier than others, but I think you guys could see it pretty well. And if you wanna participate in next week's, the theme for next week is gonna be clone rifles. And I really like clones, I'm a big fan of them, I've been doing a bunch. If you guys can do a clone of a friend or family member, that's gonna be the goal that I'm looking for. I'm going to do a quick rundown of this, like the video is already long, but I've done a standalone video of this. This is a clone of my uncle's build. My uncle served in Iraq and Afghanistan in the US Army. Did, I think, 2 tours, maybe 3. He did at least 2. But this is a clone of his. It's on a Colt. I need to do it on an FN. But it's basically M4 with a Knights Armament rail, a Surefire light, a Leopold Mark IV CQT. This is a 1:3x14. You don't see these very often, but this is what he used. And then, yeah, just my clone of his, and it's got a fake blazer on there. He ran a real PEC and a suppressor, but don't have that yet. So, yeah, next week's theme is clone builds, and ideally of someone that you know. If not, it's okay. If you have a picture that you're basing it off of, feel free to send that picture plus the picture of yours. So I'll show you guys the picture of my uncle's right now, and then this one. But yeah, and if you guys want to send the picture to participate next week, send it to sales@atroxco.com. That's just the email for my merch website. But yeah, again, sales@atroxco.com, and I look forward to your submissions. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this could be a cool series for you guys to watch.